This is your friendly neighborhood PhD, and you're listening to the TyePod.
It's another episode of the TyePod, and I'm excited to be joined today by Jose Flores, who is a disability advocate, and you have many different hats, it looks like, going on right now. So I'm looking forward to asking you some questions about it, and yeah, going from there. But thanks for joining.
Yeah, no, my pleasure, man. Thank you for having me and letting me hang out with you and your audience.
Yeah, love these kind of conversations. So, but kind of an icebreaker, I guess, starting out. Is there a song currently, or one that like you've known for a while that kind of connects to you, that you feel maybe kind of is your story a little bit, or kind of a theme song or anything like that?
Yeah, man, I recently heard this song. It's from Danny Goki.
Okay,
It's
he was
called
an American Idol, right? I
He Was
think
a
at one point.
Man.
Yeah.
And he sang a song called Stay Strong. And when you hear it, it's just such a powerful song. And I'm a man of faith, and I'm a Christian, so he just kind of talks about, if I don't see the miracle on this side of the grave, that I know
Mhm.
eventually it'll come to pass. So, but the lyrics are just so powerful, it makes me get kind of teary eyed every time I hear it. But yeah, that's my new favorite song right now.
Yeah, that's really great. I think the lyrics on songs speak to us a lot more, it seems like, when you have a disability, at least in my perspective. So that's really cool that you have one that kind of speaks to you that way right now.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
yeah, yeah. So starting out like with just your overall journey and kind of how you got to this point, like if you want to share some highlights of kind of when you got your diagnosis, and like how everything's gone since then.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I was diagnosed at the age of 3 with SMA. You have SMA too, right?
So mine's actually Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, so same family.
yeah,
But I was diagnosed at the age of 3 with SMA, which is spinal muscular atrophy. And it was because my parents noticed that I had like a slight limp when I walked. 'Cause I started walking at 8 months old, but then
mhm.
I had like a little limp, and in the beginning everybody thought it was cool. They was like, "Oh, look, he walks like a little tough guy." When you
Like
first,
you had a swag walk or something already.
I had a
Yeah.
like I was born with a swag walk. Yeah, exactly. And so, they thought it was cute, and then, when you first start walking, you kind of just let the child start to grow into his stride, right? If you will. And so they noticed that the limp wasn't going away. Then they started noticing, like, if I would fall on the floor, I wouldn't get back up like a normal 3-year-old
Mhm,
should get up, or 2-year-old should get up.
mhm.
And so they took me to the doctors. They did a muscle biopsy on me, and they diagnosed. At first, they diagnosed me with Duchenne. I'm 48, so this was back in 1980, and they misdiagnosed me with Duchenne, then
Yeah.
re-diagnosed me with SMA, and the doctor said that by the age of 15, I'd be in a wheelchair, and they weren't expecting me to live past my teenage years.
Right. You get the list of things, right? That
Yeah,
yeah.
you get the death sentence.
Yeah.
And so, back then, I don't even think that they knew how many types there were of
Yeah.
SMA. So I wound up being type 3, having type 3. And I was able to walk and run and ride bike and roller skate and skateboard and play
Mhm.
sports. And, I had a very great childhood, to be honest. And then I lost my ability to walk when I was 22 years old.
Okay.
When I was in high school was when I really started feeling the effects of SMA. It started to become more difficult for me to just do basic things like bending over to tie my shoe, or putting one leg in my pants and then balancing myself to put
Mhm.
the other leg in. Little things like that most people take for granted now.
Right.
But
There's a lot of those too.
yeah, for sure. And so, anything that went against gravity, going from sitting in my bed or sitting in a chair to getting up was started to become a little more difficult. Going
Yeah.
up the stairs was difficult. Going down the stairs was still a breeze. But like I said, sitting in a chair, but anything that had to deal with me using my muscles to move in the opposite direction, then it started to become a little more challenging for me. And so, I graduated high school, and I have this amazing story in my number one best-selling book, which is called "Don't Let Your Struggle Become Your Standard."
Mhm.
I share this story in there about when I graduated high school, how I was so excited and nervous at the same time. It's the big day, graduation day, and you start kind of feeling like you're getting into adulthood. And I was like worried because at that time my leg would give out on me and I would fall at random moments and at random
Mhm.
times. Like I had no control over it. And I would always be super embarrassed because it would always give out at the worst times. And so we graduated on the football field. They had a big stage and everybody was packing the bleachers, and I'm walking down the hill and I'm thinking to myself, oh man, God, please don't let my leg give out on me today. And so I made it to the bottom of the hill,
Yeah.
And I was like, "Woo, yes, thank God I made it." And so, you know how they start calling your name. So the principal calls my name. I start walking towards the principal to get the diploma, and boom, my leg gives out, and I
Of
fall
course, right?
right?
Yeah.
All these people, and it was just like everybody took a grasp. It was like a movie, man. Like you can't make this up. It was like the type of scene that you would see in a movie, and everybody was like, and it went dead silent. And then on
Yeah.
the floor, it felt like an eternity for me. I'm looking around, everything is moving slow motion, and you know, I'm having these two conversations in my head. One is like, man, you need to, you know, just act like it really hurts so the EMT can come and get you up out of here and you don't have to deal with everybody's questions or laughing or pointing at you. And then the other conversation was, are you kidding me? You better get your behind up. You're at the finish line. You worked so hard for this and you're thinking about giving up right now. And so
Yeah.
I wound up, you know, ultimately getting to my feet, crossing that stage, getting the diploma, throwing both my hands above my head. And that was a pivotal, a
Mm.
transitional and pivotal moment in my life because that was the last time I remember being able to put both my hands above my head on my own. And it was also the time where, you know, they say hindsight is 2020, but that was a defining moment for me because that's when I realized, not at the moment, but as I kind of kept going on my journey, looking back, that was the moment I realized that I knew SMA had me, but I mean that I had SMA, but I wasn't gonna let
Yeah.
they have me. And ever since then, man, I've just been rocking and rolling and breaking barriers and
Yeah.
stereotypes and stigmas and just trying to be that example, man, that we need in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Definitely, I relate to you there on the falling unexpectedly and always wondering, like, well, who's going to see it and how long is it going to take to get back up? And like, what's my route going to look like getting back to either my chair or wherever I fall? So yeah, it's definitely something that you have to keep kind of getting back up from, literally.
Yeah,
um,
literally.
but talk a little bit about the kind of that anxiety that when you have a neuromuscular disease, like obviously there's like the task itself, right? Like if it's crossing the stage or getting to a classroom or whatever. And then there's the actual, well, planning and worrying about if you fall, and like what is it like balancing those two things at the same time?
Man, it's you know, my wife is always saying that sh she's never met a bunch of warriors before like those
Mm,
in the neuromuscular disease community.
mm,
And you know, I don't really know how to pinpoint how I dealt with it. I just dealt with
yeah,
it. Something like it's part of who, you know, it's part of what we have to go through on a daily basis. And we just figure it out as we kind of go along. It's like there's no manual on how to deal with anxiety,
there's not.
you know. And
No.
so for me, like I would get a little pass before my next class. I was allowed to leave like 10 minutes earlier. And
Yep.
I had like like another like a student companion who would carry my book bag for me. And we had an elevator in our school, but it was like only one. And sometimes it was on the all the way on the other side of the school. So instead of walking there, then going up and having to walk back to the other side, they would sometimes just piggyback me up the 2 flights of steps to the second
Mm,
floor. So we didn't have to walk all the way to the elevator and walk back. So you know, I was super appreciative of those guys, man. There was a couple of them that really took good care of me and really had my back. But, you know, the anxiety of, you know, if I didn't make that 10-minute cut and we were taking a test or something,
right.
I had to walk in the hallway with everybody, you know, bumping into each other. Cause like any little bump for me when I was walking, since my balance was like really off at that time, any little bump, I would fall on the floor.
Right.
And so I would always walk against the lockers so that I can kind of like balance myself as I was walking. But that anxiety of that, you know, was horrible. You know, God forbid there was a fire drill, you know, I'm like, oh my gosh, what the heck? And you know, I'm trying to
Right.
scramble and just trying to figure that whole process out. So a lot of times they would let me know in advance, you know, hey, we're gonna do a fire drill. If you want, you can come downstairs a few minutes earlier. So they kind of like they accommodated me a little bit when in
Yeah.
that regards, which was cool, but still the anxiety of it, you know, then after they let everybody in, I have to wait till everybody goes, then take
Right.
it's just like a whole it's a whole
There's all this extra time dynamic you got to account for, right? And then like with
everything.
an
Yeah,
exam or something, it's not like your mind's not already full of, trying to get ready and be prepared for the actual test, but then to, deal with the timing and getting there early. And
yeah,
it's this huge thing, I think, unless you've experienced it, like
yeah,
most people don't know what it's like with that kind of thing.
exactly, exactly. So, you know, the anxiety, you know, even till this day, you know, anxiety is real. And
Yeah.
especially like if I'm gonna fly, I travel a lot all across the United States. And, you know, flying a flying day is always the day before actually I have to make sure I'm watching what I eat because I don't want to eat anything that's gonna
Oh, yeah.
you know, you know, going number one is fine. I don't have a catheter or anything, so I'll just
Yeah.
put a blanket on me and then go on my urinal, and then my wife will just take it to the bathroom and dump it and you know rinse it out. But
Yeah.
um, but the number two, I'm always like, I gotta watch what I eat because if I have to go number two, man, it's over with. So thank God I've already kind of like developed a routine
Yeah.
and I've never had that problem. There's been times where I'd have to go before we get on the plane, and then
Yeah.
that anxiety is a whole other process that that I have to deal with, and my wife as well, because we're like, oh man, hopefully, we won't miss the flight, or we have to rush back now to the terminal. So I'll always like go to the flight the flight attendant
Hmm.
and let them know like, hey, I have to go run to the bathroom. I'm gonna run over there, and then please don't leave without me. I'll come back as soon as I'm done. And they're
Yeah.
like, don't worry, we'll wait for you. So thank God I haven't had any serious issues with.
Yeah.
I've already kind of learned what I need to do.
But
But
just the worrying alone is just like enough to really make a difference in just your
yeah,
day-to-day life, really.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
sucks, it sucks that we have to deal with that because it's just
Yep.
the condition that we all have. But like I said, we figure it out, we keep moving forward, and I'm not gonna let
Yeah.
it keep me from living my best life.
Right. Right. I'm curious, like, and I'm not experienced with all the different forms of MD or SMA, but like some of them seem to be progressive from like 3 or 4 years old up until 20. Some of them progress in like 10 years. Like what's your feeling on how obviously you were diagnosed around 3, but like what was the progression like, for you? And obviously I know you said high schools when you had to use a wheelchair mostly, but like what was the timeline, I guess, on the progression like?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I didn't have to use a wheelchair in high school because I was able to
Okay.
walk up until 22. So after 22 and I lost my ability, that's when, and I didn't even use a wheelchair then. I used a little motorized scooter because
Oh, okay.
in denial, I wasn't ready for the actual wheelchair yet. And so I probably didn't get into a wheelchair until like 2 years later, until I was like
Mhm.
24 probably. But with the SMA, there's really no way to keep track of when the progression or the decline in mobility occurs. It's
And it's
like
probably different for every case even,
it
right?
is. Well,
Yeah.
there's four types of SMA. So
Right.
one and two are the more what you would say serious ones.
Yeah.
Not that type three and four aren't serious, they're just as serious, right? But they're less, they progress a little slowly because what happens
Yeah.
with SMA, we're born without the SMN1 gene, which is the survival motor neuron 1 gene. That's the main gene that our body has and uses to produce the protein that our muscles need to stay strong. So
Yeah.
we were born without that. So our bodies are going to automatically get weak now. But some of us do have backup copies to that gene, which is called the SMN2 gene, survival
Mhm.
on 2. So depending upon how many backup copies a person has will
Yeah.
determine how fast or slow the disease progresses. So for example, I have 3 copies. So mine was a little less progressive than maybe type 1 and 2. That progress
Mhm.
faster. And so I never really can tell, like I couldn't mark the date like, oh, on February 1st, this happened.
Yeah.
I never really kept track of it, but there wasn't really like something that I stopped doing automatically.
It was just like slow changes or little
Yeah, like
events
for
that happen.
example,
Yeah.
like if I had to put my shirt on, like I can put throw the shirt over my head, pick one arm up, then pick the other arm up.
Yeah.
But like when it started to get difficult, it would feel like my arm had maybe like a 2 pound weight in it, and it just felt like I'm really like now I'm fighting, like, oh man, this is getting harder, but I'm still able to do it.
Yeah.
Felt like it was harder. So it was almost like a fatigue type feeling or
Right.
tired, weary. Like if you go to the gym and you work out and you kind of feel like droopy, like it was like that type of feeling until you realize like, oh snap, I can't even do this anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then it was like,
Yeah.
I
And
never,
you kind of, I guess instinctively you kind of adapt and adjust as the changes happen, right? I mean,
yeah,
it's probably hard to even really know when it's happening. You're just so busy
yeah,
adapting to the scenario. Yeah.
exactly. I wish I
Yeah.
would have been more aware to those different moments in my life throughout the years and really kind of tracking it. And
Yeah.
because it would have been interesting to see like what the time span is
Yeah.
between the different shiftings of the disease.
But you're also probably interested in like living your life too at the same time. I mean, it's
Yeah,
not like
exactly.
you,
Plus I'm young and I'm like, I don't care about this
why
bull.
would you want to track? Yeah. At that
Yeah,
time point in your life, you're like, nah, I'm not going to do that.
exactly.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So after, graduation and, falling, getting back up and going across stage and all that, like where did you go next after that point?
So I graduated high school and I was on what they call well, before I graduated high school, I was on survivor's benefits because my dad was a US Marine.
Oh, okay.
He passed away when I was 10. So
Mm,
sisters and I, we got survivor's benefits. But then when I turned 18, it turned into disability. And
okay.
so I was on disability. And then I was born and raised in the Bronx, New York. So I moved from New York to Florida
Mm,
at 22. So from 18 to 22, I wasn't really doing anything, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I used to DJ, and back then I had two turntables and a mixer, and
Oh, nice.
I used to make mixtapes, and I used to do
Yeah.
parties. So I used to make money doing that, but it wasn't nothing significant, right? And so I would do that, and just kind of like at that point, I was a little angry with God and the world, and just
Yeah.
like, why is this happening to me? I can't live a normal life, and you know, it's kind of like that limiting belief system, right?
Right.
And so I was hanging around the wrong people, doing some things I shouldn't have been doing, and like really just going through like like it's being like a deadbeat almost, like just crazy.
Yeah. Almost like a
Thing.
grieving phase or something. Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
I would even say maybe like a slight depression, but nothing serious.
Yeah.
I had to be medicated or anything, but just like feeling like this sucks, man. Like, why is this happening to me? Like, I didn't want to do anything really. I didn't want to really go anywhere. I mean, I
Yeah.
did want to, but because of the condition, I was like afraid to go out into the world and hang out with friends. And I would make up excuses like my stomach hurts or my leg hurts. I don't want to go
Yeah. Just
because
to try to avoid that whole situation.
yeah, I didn't want to
Yeah.
fall in front of people. And
Yeah.
and then I was even getting more upset because I'm like, man, I'm over here lying to these people, but I'm also missing out on life. And I had FOMO at the same time. So
Yeah.
it's like all of these different things. And so, from 18 to 22, when I moved to Florida, um, I was quickly realizing as I was getting older, because
Yeah.
now I'm 22 years old, and I'm figuring out like, shoot, getting that measly $867 a month disability check is no way to live.
No, it's not.
This isn't going to give me the quality of life that I'm, number one, used to, and number two, that I want to continue. And so I went and got a job. And then my first job in Florida was it was at a research marketing company. And
Okay.
I did that for 3 years. And then that was like a little part-time gig. It wasn't even full-time. But then I was realizing like, man, I was always like forward thinking. I was like, man, I got to get more. I got to get more. I got to do more. I got to learn more. I got to become more. And so I wound up getting a job in the hospitality industry for a major timeshare company. And I was with them for 10 years. And that's where I met my beautiful wife.
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah, we were on the same team. And, we just became her and I, we were hanging out with the same group on our team. We would go out to the movies or to the beach, or we would go to one of our houses and play cards. And we
Yeah.
were just like really good friends. We just were very friends. Like I was attracted to her, but at the same time, I was like, she's not going to want to be with a guy like me. You know what I mean? Like you just kind of like telling
Yep.
yourself,
Yep.
and
Had you dealt with that mentality kind of like for a long time, like feeling that kind of not
no,
good enough or anything? Yeah.
really, because when I was walking, I had no problem, right?
Right.
I
And
had
I guess in some ways it was invisible to most people, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I knew how to hide it well too.
Yeah.
So on top of that, once I was no longer, you can't hide a scooter, you know what I mean? Or you can't,
Nope. You can try it, but it won't. It's
yeah,
not possible.
yeah. So I mean, when I started working there, I was already in the scooter. So I would go to work in my scooter. So she already
Right.
knew, that everybody knew I had a condition or something was going on. But after being really good friends and just her knowing, what the situation was, and she was very caring with me, like helping to take care of me in certain ways. And like
Mhm.
in the back of my head, like, wow, she's really like she's doing a little extra for me. So I kind of
Yeah.
man, maybe she's feeling me too, maybe she's like attracted to me. So, she wound up just telling me one day, like, yeah, I am attracted to you, and so
Yeah.
like, oh, really? I was like, oh, I'm attracted to you too. And then I asked her
Yeah.
Valentine, and that was it, man. We just celebrated last month. We celebrated 18 years married.
Wow. That's amazing.
So we've been together for 22 years, and we had a beautiful wedding. We have two beautiful children, and like I tell people, like my main dream was wondering if a woman was ever going to love me like this, and was I
Yeah.
ever be able to work or drive a car or own a home. And, thank God I have all those things. So right now I'm telling people like I'm living the dream. Like this is the American dream to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm not filthy rich or super wealthy, but I'm content, and I'm at peace, and I'm at joy, and I have the woman of my dreams. I have a family. You know what I mean? So I'm living the dream, man.
Yeah, definitely. And that's really great to hear that you kind of overcame that, that darker period over those 4 years or whatever, and then were
Yeah.
able to kind of, cross to the other side. So like what was there like a light bulb moment where you realize like I am past kind of the darker side of it, like I have more self acceptance maybe, and like I can still do, you know, so many of the things. Like was there one moment where that happened, or was it kind of a gradual like kind of coming back from that?
Well, I was actually married at a young age. I got married
Mhm.
at 22 when I first moved to Florida. I met her
Okay.
here. We got married, and that lasted 2 years. And I was still able to stand and walk at that time.
Hmm.
And I lost my ability to walk, and then that's when things changed. So
Hmm.
I figured she she probably figured that, this wasn't the lifestyle she wanted to be involved with. And, I get it, but she just
Yeah.
she went about it the wrong way. But I had a child with her, and then we wound up getting divorced. And then that's when I met, I got this new job and I was working and I met my,
Mm.
my current wife. And but in between that period, I'm thinking like, man, is this going to be happening to me all the time? Like, I'm not I didn't think I was an ugly dude. I felt like I had a great personality. I
Yeah.
felt like I was a little humorous, and and so people, like being around me. But I was like, man, I don't want to keep having like these short-term relationships with women that, they're like, oh, he's cute, and let me see if it works. And then if it doesn't, they just
Yeah.
kind of, they just go. And so, when she left me, I was like, oh man, I hope, so when I got into it with my current wife, I was very leery on like, is she gonna leave me too? Is she just gonna be around for a little bit until it gets rough? And then she's like, hey, I'm out of here. And so I had like to really, I struggled with that in the beginning. And, but thank God, one of the things is that because we were best friends, we literally spoke about everything. And she even was talking to me while I was going through my divorce with
Oh, wow. Yeah.
and just kind of giving me advice and just kind of being a friend that I needed at the time. But, just being able to have that communication in the beginning and like talking to her like, hey, this disease is progressive. Like it could get worse and it could get more challenging and it could get harder. Like, is
Yeah.
that something that you think you would be willing to do or that you think you can do? Because the last thing I would hate is that, we try to get involved and then, you wind up feeling like, man, this is too
Kind of
much
that,
for my heart,
like a burden mentality, right? In a way,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
wondering. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what was so good though about hers, it seemed like, she already knew the
Yeah.
situation, what was going on, like already was comfortable around you with everything. So I mean that's a huge barrier that was already crossed, seems like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And she kept reassuring me too, like, hey, I understand. I know what I like kind of like I know what I'm signing up for. I know what I'm
Yeah.
to, I understand that it could get worse and I'm here. I want to be here for you. And bro, I mean, I'll tell you something, Ty. She is the most amazing woman on the planet, in my opinion. Like the things that she does for not only for me, but for our family. So she,
Mm.
had a child in her previous relationship too. So we have a blended family. Like my son, I had custody of him and
Mm.
her. My son was 2, her son was 3 when we got married, and now they're 24 and 25 years old. So they
Wow.
just know us as their parents. And so we created the family that we have. We both come from broken homes,
Mhm.
but we try to create that family dynamic with our kids because even she wasn't married to her son's father, but she had a son with him, and I was married and had a son, and then we so they come from kind of broken homes too, but they were young enough to at the time that we were able to build that family structure and dynamic so that they can see like what a healthy husband and wife look like and what a healthy family dynamic look like. So we were able to do that with each other and for each other. And yeah, man, I mean, like I said, we still like we live an amazing life. Like my wife and I, we still like each other and love each other.
Mhm.
We're surviving marriage, but we're thriving. We have a great time. Her birthday's this weekend, so we're going to be going out of town, celebrate her birthday, have a great time and unplug. And
Yeah.
we work a lot, we do a lot of different things. And so when we we work hard, but we play harder, type of.
Yeah. 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 I'm curious what it was like, for your two children growing up, being around you with a disability and everything. Like, how was that for both sides? Do you feel like it? I mean, they probably saw you as more just a father and human more than. I mean, they probably weren't aware of disability at all, really, were they? Like, how was that dynamic? I guess.
They were aware, but they
Yeah.
really, they kind of knew it was like it was part of the gig,
Yeah.
a part of life. Like, hey, my dad's in a wheelchair, he needs help, but I know it was tough for them too, because when you're born into that type of family dynamic, you have to help out, and so it was a lot of like having them help me to do this, helping me do that. Like they kind of grew up a little faster than they should have, like the normal kid would,
Mhm.
but hey, it's just a part of the dynamic, right? Like
Right.
I didn't ask to be born like this, but it is what it is. So I have to deal with it, right? They didn't ask for it either, but we don't get to pick and choose what family we get to be born into, right?
True.
And we don't get to pick and choose whether we are born healthy or not either. So, I just,
Well, and they probably learned a lot of things though with like empathy and like caring for people and everything at an earlier age too, which seems like that would be a really good thing.
yeah. They definitely learned some good traits and qualities from the lifestyle,
Mhm.
but at the same token, it was tough for them, because sometimes they wanted to go places and do things and they couldn't because they would need I was part of the responsibility for them too.
Yeah.
So that was a little challenging to kind of like talk through that and kind of get through that. And there's no manual for this type of stuff, right? So you kind of just kind of go with the flow and figure it out
Mhm.
as you go, hoping that, as we get older, we just become more compassionate, we become more understanding, we become more kind, more patient, more empathetic, towards the different situations that we have to go through in life. But not only that, as we grow older, now we're trying to hopefully incorporate those same qualities and traits in other people when we see other people struggling as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really well said. I think there's definitely some things that you pick up and learn going through that experience that changes you, and you're obviously trying to kind of bring that awareness factor, I think, with you. As far as like advocacy and kind of spreading awareness of SMA and everything, like I know you're an author, but like what are your efforts like in that area overall?
Yeah, no, definitely, man. I was never really connected with the disability community until
Yeah.
5 years ago, and I'm 48. So, and it's because like I never felt disabled.
Yeah.
I never really had a problem. I didn't really feel like I needed a support system. I had a good support system with my family and my friends already. So I didn't really need to look outside of that. But, you know, as I got older and I started understanding more about my specific condition, then becoming because I have a 20-year corporate America background, but then in 2018, I decided to become well, the company I was working for, they wound up laying me and 22 other people off. And so, but I had already written my book and I was already doing some motivational speaking because that was the direction I wanted to go into.
Yeah.
I was kind of feeling unfulfilled and getting burnt out with corporate America. Even though corporate America treated me very well, I was able to pay for my whole wedding out of my own pocket for everything. Because of I was into sales, so I would get a salary plus commission. So I did very well.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. And but I was kind of getting tired of doing that. And I felt like I was caught in that 9 to 5 rat race.
Mm,
And there's nothing wrong with that for some people, but it because obviously it wasn't wrong for me, but I just got to the point where I just didn't want to do that anymore. And so I was like, and the reason I did that too, to be honest, Ty, is because I thought that again goes back to the limiting belief system that that's all I thought I would be capable of.
mm.
Give me a computer, a keyboard, and a headset, and I can rock and roll.
Good to go. Yeah.
But anything other than that, I can't do. And so
Yeah.
that was my mentality until I really started to it's like getting around some different people. And like I literally was at work one day, overwhelmed, frustrated. I didn't want to be there. And I just literally one day was just like on a break. I was like, you know what, let me just Google or YouTube motivational speaking. And so I YouTubed it and I just kind of saw all of these amazing speakers. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I was always worried about the things that I couldn't do. And so I was like, well, what can you do? And I was like, I can still use my mind and I can still use my voice.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is what all these speakers are doing. They're using their minds, their voices, and their stories. And I was like, I have an incredible mind, I have a powerful voice, and I have some amazing stories. And I was like, if these guys can make millions of dollars doing this, then I can do it too. And so I
Yeah.
went down this rabbit hole of personal and professional development. And it just turned excuse me, it turned into this whole big snowball of development, of self-development,
Mhm.
self-discovery, learning new gifts that I had, and it was just an amazing experience. And so I just got so consumed with that I was addicted to it. I was obsessed with it, and so I just kind of kept like looking into it and learning and going to conferences and going to networking events and fine tuning my speech and fine
Mm,
tuning my story and fine tuning my niche and just kind of growing my business. And here I am 7 years later, still doing it full time, rocking and rolling. And it's really been an amazing journey. It's been a beautiful journey to say the least. And I just want to encourage some of the people that are listening or watching this that, the only limitations we have are the ones that we put on ourselves because when we can really when we put our mind, one of my mentors, his name is Tim Grover. I don't know if
uh-huh.
if for the sports people out there, they know who he is because if you ever saw The Last Dance on Netflix with the Michael Jordan story,
I
Tim Grover was Michael Jordan's personal coach. So he's a good friend of mine, and
Oh, nice.
he wrote a testimonial for me. It's on my website actually, but he said that Jose is the definition of resilience. He said because when the mind decides, he said he's the true definition that when the mind decides, everything else follows.
Mm,
And that's such a powerful statement because when you think about it, my favorite book says, as a man thinks, so he becomes. And so, whatever you're thinking on, there's that cliche statement that says um where the uh where the mindset goes, energy flows.
mhm.
And
That's got a nice rhyme to it.
yeah, yeah. And so, like, what we're thinking, what we're consuming, you know, what we're putting into our minds, whether it's through our eyes, our ears, you know, reading, movies, literature, whatever it is, you know, is what's going to come out eventually. And so I did a complete, you know, 180 because
Mhm.
growing up in the Bronx, New York, and the projects around drugs and gangs and prostitution and all of that, to the person that I am today, you would never believe it, bro. You
Yeah.
never believe it. Like the people who know me from back then and see me now, they're like, "Yo, I'm so proud of you, bro. Like you come a long way."
Yeah.
And even on top of being in a wheelchair and having to deal with this condition that I'm constantly in battle with, you know, like my friends from back in the day, they're like, "Bro, you're like the strongest. Like I'd rather be around you than 20 able-bodied dudes to have my back," type of thing, because your mind's
Yeah.
so strong and powerful and like the and but I wasn't always like that, right? I had to this was like been a development because I was like
Right.
afraid to go out and scared and this and you know
Yeah.
even though I was outgoing, I was afraid of going out, if that makes sense, right?
I get it. Yeah. Yeah.
But a lot of my friends are like, bro, you're like the strongest dude I know, and this and this and that. So, you know, it's just been an amazing journey. Like when I look back and I reflect, and I'm just like, man, God, you know, you did an amazing thing with me. And a lot of times, you know, I know I was asking like that whole why question when I was younger, but I know now
Yeah.
1,000% why, you know, God was like, hey, you know what, I'm gonna give this one to Jose, and then because I know what he's gonna be capable of doing with this, you know.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
you know, I'm making a lot of people proud, man. I'm making a lot of people proud, including myself, because
Well, I was going to say like that self-fulfillment, is such a big thing and quality of life,
yeah,
is
man,
just like that's kind of where it's at.
I never thought in a million years, bro, that I would be doing what I'm doing today and making
Yeah.
that I'm doing today. And so, you know, I just, you know, I wanted to go on, you know, so going back to your original question about the advocacy work, it was like
Yeah.
in my passion, like the last 5 years, like, and it was literally started with COVID because before COVID, I was on a
Mm.
26 city tour with my mentor, Les Brown. He's one of the most,
Was that like a book tour or speaking tour or what was that? Okay.
so yeah. And so, you know, then COVID hit, everything shut down.
Yep.
So I was like, man, you know, I was like, this is the perfect time for me to get involved in my community, not only the disability community, but the community that I actually live in. And so,
Hmm.
and so I applied for the position of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Board for the city that I live in South Florida.
Okay.
I got selected from my district commissioner. And then, you know, there's 4 districts plus the mayor picks one. So there's 5 people on the board. And then all 5 of us had to vote who they wanted as the chair. So I was voted as the chairman for the you know, the DEI board. So I worked that position for 3 years for the city. And, you know, so I did that. That was like a great, huge milestone for me because
That sounds like a great experience to be involved in that kind of work.
it was, man, and I didn't even realize, like, I had to go in and get sworn in
Yeah.
with the city officials, and so
Very official.
I'm the first chairman of my city to be the chairman of that board, and I also happen to be Latino as well, Hispanic, so that
Mhm.
was like a big thing for me, also just kind of like representing my people type of thing, you know, the Hispanic culture, and so I did that, but then I also got involved with the Cure SMA
Yep. That's a
community.
nonprofit, right? That's working with SMA.
Yep, it's just almost like MDA, but it's specifically
Yeah.
spinal muscular atrophy. So it's massive. So I got involved with them, and now I'm on the adult advisory board with that organization. And then I also became an ambassador for the MDA as well.
Right.
And
Okay.
yeah, and so I've been and since I've been doing that, I've been going to we went to Capitol Hill a couple times to advocate
Hmm.
for accessible air travel and for the NIH and you know advocating for additional funds for you know ongoing research for these
Yeah.
rare neuromuscular diseases and other rare diseases, and we've been pretty successful. You know, it's been an uphill battle, and we are seeing some,
Right.
but you know, we have come a long way, but we still have a long way to go, man.
It's incremental, right? Like baby steps sometimes, but
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
yeah, yeah. No, I'm
it,
definitely looking forward to trying to get some of those conferences going on now and like really kind of there's so much work I think to be done with everything. So
I
yeah,
feel like
it's
this is one area where you know people really drag their feet with. I feel like you know being involved with it for as long as
yeah,
now and just kind of seeing what happens on the front lines and behind the scenes. It's just one of those things like it's like people don't really care about the
right.
community. To be honest, it's like
It's
okay,
an afterthought too often.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like an afterthought. It's like, okay, we'll just give them a little bit of money just to survive.
Right.
But that's it, you know. Don't let them prosper. Don't let them succeed. You
And
know.
how they could assume a
Yeah,
disability benefit check of $800 a month is going to actually be enough to survive on. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
that's what I'm
Like,
saying. And so,
yeah,
you know, and I get it. You know, not everybody can work. Not everybody can go out and do their thing. You know,
right.
totally understand that. But I feel like there should be things in place that those people can still live a certain quality of life
Mhm.
without having to go through all the rigmarole.
Well, in a lot of ways too, I think about that, income and everything can look different ways, right? Like if someone's on disability benefits, but they're putting efforts into, maybe being an ambassador or doing like volunteering or advocacy work, like that's kind of, that's kind of doing a job, right? For the money that you're bringing in. So it doesn't look like the quote unquote conventional way, but yeah, it can still be productive and fulfilling and everything. Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious. I know we're getting close to the end of the interview here. I don't want to ask you too many more things, but as far as the intersectionality of, you being Latino and having muscular dystrophy, like, how do you feel that that's maybe, has it been more difficult? Has it led to better things? Like, what's your kind of experience, of those two things together?
Yeah, so good question. So I actually certified my business. So my business, I'm a certified what they call MBE, which is a minority business enterprise.
Okay.
It's with what they call the NMSDC, which stands for National Minority Supplier Development Council. I know that's a long word, but it's National Minority Supplier Development Council. It's a big, again, nonprofit organization that businesses can that are minorities. So being Hispanic, I'm considered a minority. But then they have the DOBE, or they call it the DOBE, which stands for Disability Owned Business Enterprise. And I got my business is certified with both those organizations.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so a lot of times these major Fortune 100 and 500 companies, they have what's called supply diversity departments, and they're responsible for they get like grants from the government for doing business with minority-owned businesses or disability-owned business or women-owned businesses or veteran-owned businesses. There's different organizations. The fact that I'm certified with two, it helps because then these companies get tax breaks for doing business with us as well. And so I haven't seen a tremendous difference in it because again, there's a lot of gatekeepers and you have to kind of like, it's not about what you know, it's who you know sometimes.
Right.
Nowadays, it's not even about who you know, it's about who knows you, right? And
That's a good way to put it.
yeah, and so it's been a little challenging working with those organizations, but
Yeah.
I've been giving it a shot and trying to work the system and see what happens. But at the end of the day, I think that just being a minority and a minority who has a disability, I think that just it just speaks volumes to anybody who's watching or paying attention because I could be the one that's just saying, hey, you know what, I have this condition, let me get my checks and leave me alone, but
Right.
again, some people are okay with that. Some people are satisfied with that, and then there's some people that have no options but to do because their situation doesn't allow them to get out and do something. But I still feel like if you have a sound mind and you have a voice and you can still use your voice, then there's so many things that you can do. And I think that
Yeah.
we limit ourselves on the amount of things we can do because of our conditions. And we say, oh no, we won't be able to do that. Or if we try that, they won't respect us, or this group won't accept us, or we'll get rejected over here. And so I'm always a fan, bro. And my mom taught me this, even when I was a kid. Like, how when like some people are afraid to ask their parents for stuff and they're like,
Yeah.
no, because they're gonna say no. My mom always raised me like you always ask because
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, it might be no, but you never know if that one time you ask, I'll say yes, type of thing.
And I mean, like when no was the worst thing that happened, it's like that's not so bad, really.
Yeah, exactly. So it's
Yeah.
like, I've always carried that with me through my whole life, and
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to ask, bro. And then there's a book that I read, The Power of Asking, and in my favorite book, it says, "You have not because you ask not." And so you got to ask, bro. And I've always been a fan of that. I've always been an advocate of that, and I've always been a person who lives by that. And because of that, I've gotten a lot of things because
Yeah.
I was brave enough to ask, right? And so I'm always telling people like, hey, just ask. You never know.
Just try it. Yeah. Yeah.
If the
No,
answer
but
is no, you already don't have it, so you're not really losing anything, right? But if they
it's a
say
good
yes,
way to put it.
you have much to gain. So I'm always like, hey, man, go for the gusto and ask for everything you want, and you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, no, that's the way to do it, I think, in my opinion, for sure. And like, I mean, just sharing your story and experience for anybody that's kind of growing up, going through anything similar, like that right there is advocacy too. You're kind of setting the example of it's not a manual or a guide of how to get through it, but it's the closest thing that you can get, I think. And that's
Yeah.
really got to help so many people. So
So
as far as your three books, like what are the titles and how can people find, your work on that and your speaking as well?
yeah, so you can definitely go to my website. My
Yeah.
website has everything as joseinspires.com. My social media, all platforms is Jose at Jose Inspires. My Cash App is at Jose, my Venmo's
You got everything synchronized, right?
everything is Jose inspired.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can check out my website. All my books are there. My programs, my some assets. I just launched a new for those. I know a lot of people, not only in the disability community, but able-bodied people too. A lot of people want to become professional speakers,
Yeah.
want to be coaches and consultants and things of that nature. And so I just launched on my website just recently. This new product is called the Speaker Asset Vault. And
Mhm.
what's in the vault is over 30 documents, contracts, email pitches, proposals, pre and post event questionnaires, NDAs, all type of different documents that you can that are not only downloadable, but they're done for you. So they're customizable. You can customize them and put your information in them. And this is what, everybody has a story, but access to the vault is going to help you run a business and run the back end
Yes.
of your business. So it's going to give you all the tools. And this is over, excuse me, this is over my 10-year career so far, because I was been speaking professionally for 10 years, but
Yeah.
we're doing it full time for 7 years. So the first 3 years I was working two jobs. I was working my regular job, and then I was come home and work on my dream job.
Wow.
And yeah, and so that I was up 16, 17, sometimes 18 hours a day, sometimes writing my books on the weekends, missing out on pool parties and family gatherings, movie nights because
That reminds me of grad school, I have to tell you.
yeah, man, you got to get super focused and locked in.
Yeah.
If you want to get that results.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I wrote, so anyway, my first book is called Finding Your Greatness. It's an ebook. You can get that on Amazon. My second book is called it's my first physical paperback copy. It's called Don't Let Your Struggle Become Your Standard: How to Be Indispensable Even When the Odds Are Stacked Against You. You can get that on Amazon, but if you want a signed copy, you can go to my website. And then my third book that we finished, but it's a book, it's a three-part package. So it's the book, the workbook, and a journal that goes along. They all tie in together. And my wife and I did, it's a marriage book that my wife and I did it, kind of sharing our tips and tricks.
Very cool.
18 years of marriage and being together for 22. So it's called What Real Love Looks Like: How to Have It All Even When You Don't Have It All. And it's a powerful book, man. It's the most powerful book I've written so far with my wife. And I always tell my wife, I'm like, hey, listen, I'm a force all by myself. Um, I'm not saying I'm a movement all by myself, but we're a
Yeah.
force when we're together.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a powerful book, and we have a heart for marriages because we see, a lot, not only in the disability community, but in the able-bodied community too. Like marriages are hurting, marriages are struggling. Everything looks all peaches and cream on the outside, but on the inside, there's broken people out there,
Hmm.
it's hurting
Yeah.
people. Yeah, and we want to be able to help fix that if we can. And we understand we won't be able to fix everybody, but if we can fix a couple people, man, like I said, my wife and I come from a broken home, and we think that the family dynamic isn't as strong today as it was,
Mm.
maybe 30, 40 years ago. And, where mom and dad were together, and the kids were all, they were still together, and the parents were, even though they had problems, even though, there may have been some situations, they stuck together and they pushed through, and they made it happen, And so nowadays it's like, hey, if I'm not happy, I'm gone, and happiness doesn't come from one another. Happiness is an inside job.
Mm.
You have to be happy yourself on the inside and stop looking for happiness in external factors. And so anyway, but we wrote this book, and we kind of just share like our story, our love story, which is amazing. And we also share like what's worked for us over the years. And
Mm.
you think about it, right? We deal with the same issues and challenges and struggles that every other marriage goes through: financial,
Right.
communication,
It's still a relationship, right? Like it's
relationship
still,
stuff.
yeah.
And but then on top of that, if you throw in the whole disability and caregiver and wheelchair aspect of it, that's a whole other thing now.
Hmm.
That's a
Hmm.
whole other complicated thing. And if we're able to still survive that and thrive in that,
Hmm.
then whatever anybody else is going through could be adjusted, and repaired and restored, which is the word I was looking for. It can be restored, because sometimes, people lose hope, and we just want to let people let people know that hope is alive and well. And I'm a testament of that because of the way I live my life personally and individually. But my wife and I are an example of that because of the way we live our lives collectively as a married couple. And
Yeah.
we just want to do whatever we can to help. So we think that this is going to be powerful. That's not available yet. It'll be available
Okay.
probably Q1 of next year.
Okay.
Still just kind of wrapping up some loose ends.
But it's on the horizon at this point though, right? It's just close.
It's locked and loaded, man. We just
Yeah.
gotta get the website going, and we're gonna do a marriage conference next year in the beginning of the year. So be on the lookout for that, and it's gonna be powerful, man. So yeah, you can check that out. And I don't really promote coaching that much, but I'm gonna probably launch a speaker coaching coming up soon
Mm.
as well, because I've been doing this for 10 years, man. It's a long time, and
Yeah, yeah,
because I've had mentors and coaches myself, I've been able to accelerate a lot faster than some other people. Because a lot of times I see people and they're like, man, how did you get on this stage? Or man, how were you able to do that? And that was because I invested in myself, and I invested in a coach and a mentor that can help me along the way. And so the same way I had one, I want to be that for somebody else. And so for those of you that are ready to, that are interested in becoming a speaker or a coach or a trainer, and you're ready to go to that next level, definitely hit me up, and we can figure out, how I can go ahead and help you be the best speaker out there as well.
well, that's awesome. Like that set of resources that you just listed off, I think is huge. That's going to be so much, benefit for people, I think. So I'll share all that information and the
Yeah,
captions and everything, and definitely, I'll
thank you.
include the website and everything. But I'm really looking forward to seeing the new book when it comes out.
Yeah, it's amazing. The book cover is just amazing, brother. It's like it speaks volumes when you see the cover. People just gonna be like, "Wow, that is
Yeah.
incredible." Yeah.
Yeah, great to hear. Well, I sure appreciate the time, Jose. And like, is there, I know you said the book was something to look forward to, but is there something else coming up in like the near future that you're kind of excited, looking forward to?
No, that's like really the main thing.
That's the big thing.
Book, that's the big thing. I
Yeah.
have been doing some partnerships with a lot of company. That's another little niche that I
Mm,
tapped into recently. So I've been, you can follow me for different things that I use that have to do with the technology that makes life
oh,
easier
nice.
for the disability community. So I have like a standing frame that I use, the ceiling, the electric ceiling lift that I use by Short Hands. The standard that I use is called the Easy Stand Glider. The shower chair that I use, the travel shower chair that I use that's foldable, and it's only
Mm,
18 pounds. I travel with that. So,
oh,
just
nice.
different things. Yeah, different things that I use that, assistive technology devices that make life easier. But I've also been partnering with some major companies. Like I just did a partnership with this company called Trust and Will. They reached out to me, and they wanted me to do a influencer collaboration with them, just because, 83% of Americans think that it's important to have a trust and a will, but
Yeah.
like 30% of them actually have one. And so, if, and you don't have to, man, again, I just did a post on this last week about how I used to think that trusts and wills were for like the mega rich and the super wealthy, but
Right.
it's not, it's really just, it's just another way for you to get your house in order. Because, when you pass away, you don't want your kids or your family to have to deal with all these problems and
True.
court issues and all these different things. So having a trust and will kind of sets that all up for you, so that when you do pass, your family's protected. So you're actually still benefiting your family once you're gone, because you've done all these things. And so it's very, very affordable. I thought it was, it was a ton of money you would have to spend to do all of this, and it's just a couple $100, two to $500, depending upon
Yeah.
the package you pick. So just think about that, man. And again, these are the things, Ty, that I like getting involved with, and I like talking about, because I never had anyone when I was younger talking to me
Right.
things. I didn't have a coach when I was a kid, or a mentor when I was a kid, and not only for able-bodied people, but as a kid with a disability, I never had nobody in my corner telling me like, I have my mom and my dad, but that's different. They're just showing you that natural biological love.
Mm,
But
mhm.
my parents weren't financially literate. Like my dad owned a company, but it was like a mom and pop shop.
Oh, yeah.
It kind of made ends meet, but it wasn't anything that was massively successful, because they didn't have the information that they needed to be able to grow and scale.
Mhm.
We do now. We have with social media. Like they didn't have social media back in the day. They
That's very true.
the yellow pages was the Google back in the day. This big thick binder of.
I remember those. Yep. Yep.
We've come a long way, but now I have this plethora of information and wisdom and knowledge, because I've invested and I've gotten these several coaches and mentors in different aspects of my life. Like I have
Yeah.
a speaking coach, I have a financial coach, I have a real estate coach, because my wife and I, we just finished, recently purchased our first investment property. We bought two houses, and plus the house we live in. So we have three doors now. And
Mm,
so, you have to have a coach for that, because you got to have somebody who can teach you the ropes, and help and
right.
learn on your own with ChatGPT and Google nowadays. But they can only do so much. Like if you have
Right.
somebody who's been down the path and can tell you exactly what to do, like, yeah, ChatGPT and Google, they're great. They can help a ton. But I would like to hear from somebody who actually walked the path.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like those are great tools for sure, but then you still need that human connection, and advisement. And yeah. Yeah.
Exactly, bro.
Yeah.
So Yeah, man. So that's all me in a nutshell, man. I just want to say, Ty, thank you again for having me.
Absolutely.
You're doing a great job. This is a form of advocacy for you as well. And I just
Right.
much success, man, and keep rocking and rolling, brother, because you're definitely
Yeah.
making a difference.
Well, yeah, same to you. And I sure appreciate the time. We'll be in touch. I'm looking forward to seeing what you're doing next. So I sure appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you too. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you. Oh, hey, one last thing.
Yeah.
Let you and your audience know there are a couple of freebies. If you go to my website, joseinspires.com, you scroll to the bottom and you subscribe now, you'll get an email with a couple of freebies. There's a video, not a video, there's an audio in there that I did, motivational talk on the power of showing up. And I
Yeah.
think there's another couple, maybe 1 or 2 documents that you can use on networking and things like that that can help you out if you want to get out there and start leveling up.
Yeah, that sounds great. Sounds great. Well, I sure appreciate it. And thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome, man. You guys
Yeah.
take
You too.